Girl, how you fucking doing shit? You're just like, if I start to take a brisk walk, I'm just gonna close my eyes and go tra-la-la-la-la-la. Nothing bad can happen. Open your eyes, you loon. What the fuck's wrong with you? Right, well, I guess this is chapter 1 of Emotionless Badass, and it's titled, Why Not Fuck 'Em? His hands roamed over my bare skin, the touch bringing out a moan while his lips took mine. God damn, he's got the softest lips I've ever tasted. I let my fingers glide across his defined jaw down his neck, enjoying the pulsing vein that ran up it. My hand lingered before moving down his hard and quick-rising chest. His mouth began calling my name as my lips left his to roam over his masculine muscles. I was ready to taste every part of his perfect body, and this simple sin would be forgiven, because Jesus died for my sins, right? My tongue roamed down, finding its way along the crook of his neck, where my teeth grazed over the tan skin. Lana, he called soft. Yes, say my name. I let my fingers pull lightly on his hair while I smiled into his chest, grinning at his roaming hands. Those hands more curious than a wild and mischievous cat. Oh, Lana, his voice became more rough, almost possessive. After I took his lips again, I let his hand squeeze my thigh as he called my name louder in more of a hushed tone. My mind flooded in slight confusion. I mean, why the hell is he whisper shouting? Lana! I snapped my head back to look him over before he started fading away slowly and a more familiar face took his features. Lana! The blonde spoke with her elbow into my ribcage. She must have been doing it repeatedly since I could already feel the bruise forming. Damn, it's already hurting. Looking down at her, I noted her dark blue and white checkered miniskirt with the white button-up that had 3 of the top buttons free to show major cleavage. I knew her major cleavage wouldn't be there if it weren't for the new push-up she purchased at yesterday's sale. It was the same bra she'd been eyeing for the last 2 months. I hope I didn't look as slutty as she does. I mean, it's all right to look sexy, but this girl just screams fresh out of porno. I shook my head from my daydream, mentally cursing her for waking me before the good part started. What? I let my annoyance carry into my tone, and she pointed a newly manicured finger toward the front of the classroom. That was what was what. What was a very attractive what. He stood up at the front of the classroom with his arms built strong, a serious look that warned people not to fuck with him. The tattoos gave it away that he'd be known as a badass. This young man, stood at the front of the room staring over at the class board, his green eyes stopping me in my stupid, dirty thoughts. I noted the fact his short hair was brushed back, probably from the amount of times he's run his fingers through it. I would run my fingers through it, give it a nice pull and a little massage while I rode him. Wow, was all I could say. The sex gods stood at the front with a chiseled jaw that must have been crafted by an artist, the smallest stubbles of hair coming off, while even though he wasn't smiling, you could tell he had dimples. It showed when he tensed his jaw and swallowed nervously. Can you please promise you won't try to get at him? I'll have no chance against Aphrodite herself. Misty spoke in her seducing voice, sighing as her eyes roamed his body. Conquest 560 of this month. She's too much. As much as I'd like to make that promise, though, I'm not really sure I can. I'd be lying to you if I said yes. A small grin formed on my lips, causing her to scowl and shake her head in disbelief. She leaned back in her seat with her hands up in a surrender position. I give up. I've already lost. Her laughter followed her whispered words. I shoved her slightly. She's so dumb. She's the blonde beauty of this school, the typical hot white girl, just big blue eyes, long blonde hair, naturally rosy cheeks, with perfect lips and a matching body. She's the true Aphrodite. Class, listen up. We have a new student. Treat him well and Mrs. Phillips looked him over, smiling slightly. What sports do you like? He looked her over with a straight face. Does this guy even own emotions? Girls leaned forward into their seats, waiting to hear the beautiful, sexy man's voice, while the guys leaned back to see what they're up against. It was a normal human reaction, interest on both sides nonetheless. Misty leaned forward, making her boobs spill over the table, to which I rolled my eyes. In a defensive way, I sat back, crossing my arms over my chest and tilting my head slightly. The new guy's cute, but a guy with no emotions or personality is a very boring guy. One that honestly doesn't get my motor running. Is that only a saying for guys? I mean, can a girl's motor run? Whatever, he definitely isn't my type. The looks? Yes. The lack of personality? Hell no. Cage fighting. His voice was deep, strong, and held so much power. It almost felt like a threat. Well, to me at least. Maybe because I hated having another male in the school who probably thinks he's got everyone wrapped around his stupid finger. Maybe I'm just judging a bit harsher than I should, but he just bothers me. Looking to the interest that grew in the eyes of the class, I scoffed. He seemed to notice their interest and stood straighter, puffing his chest a bit. Okay, I easily could have imagined that, but I swear he thinks he's tough shit. Cage fighting. Oh, please, everyone knows that's just a hoax. I can't wait to show him Misty and I own the school, not him. No guy, no matter how cute, is coming into my school and taking my place. I earned this damn spot. Years of heartbreaking and reputation building, and finally I'm on top. Oh wow, so you like fighting? Her eyes roamed down his arms, not caring about hiding the fact that she was deeply interested in his bulging arms. Probably his bulging dick as well. I'm not sure if he digs 46-year-old women with 2 children his age, but I guess I won't judge her. After all, I've been fantasizing about my third period teacher who's in his late 20s and has a pregnant wife. What can I say? He's got a really nice smile. Yeah, he stated, answering her question that I don't even remember, nor do I even care to know. I felt a hand squeeze my thigh tight as Misty bit her lip to avoid making a sound. Someone's excited about a new playmate. She's probably bored of all the guys in this town. I guess I don't blame her. I'd be bored too if I slept with all of them. Silly dirty girl. Okay, everyone, this is Ben McAllister. She sounded flustered and placed a hand on his arm as her eyes beamed at him with a small smirk. He looked down at her cautiously before he stepped away to the side a bit. Careful, Benji, she might bite ya. Some of the guys sitting in the back with us bit back laughs, others actually let it out, not giving a fuck. Guess Granny needs to change her panties. Vince spoke, laughing and giving his buddies half fives like he'd scored one. I looked back at my idiotic brother, giving him a cocked eyebrow and a look of disgust. He's so aggravating and immature sometimes. All I can do is get him back with snarky remarks. Don't be jealous. She never needed to change them for you, I said, rolling my eyes. He mocked me with a stupid face, to which I responded with a simple middle finger. Fuck, keeping it classy. This guy's lucky flipping him off is all I do. Misty looked over at Vince, smirking while mouthing, "Burned, motherfucker." His buddies sitting beside him eyed us with typical lusting looks and smirked in smirks that I always ignored. Having a twin is such an annoying thing. I always hear people wishing they had one. It's not that great. It's like having a sibling who's always there in every single part of your damn life. Even your own birthday isn't yours. It gets especially shitty when girls are always coming up to me to ask for stupid things about him, like what his favorite lunch is, or if he's dating. If only they knew how awful he is, maybe then they'd stop hounding me. He once told me that he wanted me to be homeschooled because of all the things guys talk about with him. Apparently Misty and I are most favored topic in most group chats and drunk guy talks. Just Ben is fine. The hot new guy up front spoke, and I watched him stare at her with his furrowed eyebrows. I'm sure he thinks she's a whack job. It's okay. We all do. She nodded. He is, she stated, looking him over before shaking her head and correcting herself. I mean, yes, of course, Ben. You can take a seat behind Miss Panther, she said nervously. He stared out at the crowd, cocking an eyebrow lightly. My last name has always been something people went what the fuck at. I blame my ancestors, or thank them, depends on the occasion. I've been known to match my party name to Panther. I had black hair and green eyes that Misty says look cat-like. She says I remind her of my black cat Salem. Raising my hand, I put on a bored and very uninterested look on my face, one with a bit of a threat to let him know I was serious about this. He met my eyes and stared before heading toward the seat behind me. I let my hand drop elegantly to my desk and looked at him with no expression, matching his and hoping he'd feel like I did in his awkward glare. His face was stern, and when he sat behind me, I leaned forward, looking disinterested toward my brother's friend, who kept making gestures that looked as if he was fucking his desk. Immature loser. I rolled my eyes, crossing my arms and laying my chin on them as I looked over at Misty, who was trying so hard not to look at the boy behind me. She caved quickly, though, and I knew she regretted it immediately because she let out a, "Oh." They must have made eye contact because she spoke in a nervous, rushed tone. "Hi, I'm Misty. Do you have any friends?" "I'm in space." "You're nearby, you little weirdo." I've been known to match my party name, the Panther. I had black hair and green eyes that Misty says looks cat-like. She says I remind her of my black cat Salem. Raising my hand, I put on a bored and very uninterested look on my face, one with a bit of a threat to let him know I was serious about this. He met my eyes and stared before heading toward the seat behind me. I let my hand drop elegantly to my desk and looked at him with no expression, matching his and hoping he'd feel like I did in his awkward glare. His face was stern, and when he sat behind me, I leaned forward looking disinterested toward my brother's friend who kept making gestures that looked as if he was fucking his desk. Immature loser. I rolled my eyes, crossing my arms and laying my chin on them as I looked over at Misty, who was trying so hard not to look at the boy behind me. She caved quickly, though, and I knew she regretted it immediately because she let out a, "Oh." They must have made eye contact because she spoke in a nervous, rushed tone. "Hi, I'm Misty. Do you have any friends?" Wow, way to win him over, Misty. She just has a way with words. The girl's lucky she's a bombshell, otherwise she'd have a hard time getting men. He was silent, and I sat up, leaning back and flipping my hair over my shoulder. Wow, ignoring my girl? Hell no. This guy already wants to piss us off. My eyebrow cocked up as I felt my hair move. He was brushing it off his desk. "Okay, that's fine. Don't answer me." She spoke annoyed and turned to me, scowling at him. No one ignored Misty. She's the one who does the ignoring. I looked over at Misty. If I were to rate this boy, he'd definitely be a 2 out of 5. Ignoring his deducts a whole number. 2, I spoke low while watching her try to shake off her embarrassment. She sighed and shook her head. "More like 1, she scoffed. I laughed, feeling his eyes on me. Stupid guy. "I told my mom I was staying at your house tonight. You don't mind, right?" She asked me with big pleading eyes. Probably planning on sleeping with one of the guys. I shrugged. I didn't think I had a say in it anyway. She smiled gladly at my reply. "I knew you wouldn't mind." She spoke gleefully. "Dinner's tonight. Dad said no friends," Vince said toward us in the same low tone as Misty, which was a cross between shouting and loud whispering. Looking to Vince, Misty flipped him off. "That's what I think about the dinner," she stated with fake sarcasm. He scowled as Misty threw up both her middle fingers. "And this is what I think of you intruding on our conversation," she stated, grinning. Vince sent her a wink. "You'll want me someday, princess." He sighed with a proud look, as if Misty would stoop that low. I felt my face scrunch up in disgust. "You're a pig, Vince," I said, shaking my head toward him. He scoffed, "Stop talking to me or I'll pay Ben over here to kick your ass." He stated low and clearly trying to start shit with the new guy. As he jerked his thumb to Ben, I turned in my seat and looked behind me at Ben, his green eyes flashing over my face. He looks as annoyed as I would have guessed. We made eye contact and I turned to Vince. "Really? 'Cause I could kick his ass and yours without even batting an eyelash," I said, turning back around. He laughed, catching Mrs. Phillips' attention. "Mr. Panther, have you got something to share?" Her glasses fogging up. I grinned and he spoke. "Yeah, I do. Lana is a lesbian," he said, sighing and placing both hands on the table, shaking his head. There was even a long, dramatic pause before he said lesbian. My face must have resembled something of a what the fuck, because everyone laughed while I looked at him, shutting my eyes and pinching the bridge of my nose. First off, in a time like this, is that even really a surprise or something that needs to be announced? I mean, if I was a lesbian, would it be any different than being straight? Nonetheless, I am related to a complete dumbass, I muttered. Seriously? Lesbian? I let out a laugh and looked to Misty, who stood in her seat and sat in my lap, kissing my cheek. Mrs. Phillips gasped, "Oh my! Misty! Please take a seat this moment!" The class bursted into fits of laughter. Misty laughed while she looked at Ben, smirking at him. Mrs. Phillips came walking to... Oh, God damn it. Why is this thing dumb? Why? I don't know what I did. No, it's saying one-handed movement now. So now I'm moving instead of scrolling.
Oh, you need to shift the other controller away.
Stupid thing. That's why? Yeah. So dumb. Okay. Jeez. Make sure I'm moving hands. Mrs. Phillips came walking toward us and looked to Ben. "I'm very sorry. These young women are more trouble than you'd ever imagine." She scolded us. I don't know how I'm the troublemaker. She's the trouble one. I laughed a little as Misty got off and stood on the table doing a small, sultry dance. "I am a very good girl, Mrs. Phillips," she stated, looking over at the old woman. I let out a laugh, and the bell rang, letting relief cross over Mrs. Phillips' eyes. I stood, grabbing my small black Coach backpack and helping Misty down. She's too much sometimes. I mean, come on, girl. Bending over to fix my knee-length white socks, I let my hair fall over my shoulder and balanced on Misty's shoulder while she reapplied her lip gloss. Looking back at Ben, he had a straight face as he slung his backpack onto one shoulder and seemed to want to get past us already. I don't think he's here for fucking, because if I had bent over that way in front of any other guy at this school, he'd still be gawking at my ass. I moved back into my desk as he went through the narrow path, his body brushing past mine, and I thought I imagined when he placed a hand on my waist, giving it a small squeeze, before walking out the class. Maybe it was just a push for me to get the fuck out of his way. Misty and I have the exact same schedule. We paid to have it that way. Literally paid. Every year for the last 12 years, our parents have paid to have us together. We're sort of inseparable. Our next class was anatomy and physiology, which was honestly just memorizing crap. It was a very easy class. I hate this class, Misty spoke low as we headed to our assigned seats. Most classes don't really have assigned seats. They have what we call UAs, which is just a seat we choose in the beginning of class, and it just sticks to us. It's usually very awkward when a new kid sits in our UAs. Misty and I sat at the table together with her shifting on the metal stools, scolding them. Everyone had a partner in this class, and of course mine was Misty, which meant all the grades we earned are from me. "Oh shit, Ryan's here today," Misty stated in a low shout as she leaned forward and looked over at the blonde guy. I'm surprised the cops actually let him come to school. Last weekend, he apparently drugged and raped a girl at one of the parties. He claims he didn't rape her and that she was fully aware, but I doubt it. I eyed him over in disgust before looking to the door, my stomach not wanting to watch him any longer. Miss Bevra stood at the front, smiling at the kid walking in. Well, that's going to make Misty happy. Ben's in this class, too, I said, looking from him to Misty, who smirked at him, licking her lips. She eyed him over. "New boy," she called. He turned, looking to her as she gave him her flirtatious grin and patted the seat across her. The kid that used to sit on our table got kicked out of the school. God damn it, it's doing that thing again. I mean, the guy's going to have to be an odd number in a group anyways. The class is even now, and he just came and fucked it up. Asshole, ruining perfectly good, even-numbered classrooms. Are we really letting him into our group? The guy's a douche, I said low, watching her stare at me with puppy dog eyes. She sighed. Just let me fuck him, please. Then I'll kick him off our table, I promise, she said, smiling. I rolled my eyes. Fine. But I get to do the kicking, I said, watching him finish talking to Miss Bevra and come over to our table. I have to, pause and scroll each time. It's hard to be, continuously speaking. His eyes ran over Misty, and he put his backpack on the stool across from me while taking a seat across from her. How weird that you're in this class, too. Can I see your schedule? She asked, leaning forward and smiling seductively at him. He looked over at her with furrowed eyebrows. No, he said before turning his attention back to the teacher. I laughed lightly and avoided Misty's glare. She's going to realize later that the guy is gay and it's going to be hilarious challenge of hers to fuck gay man. Silence grew, and people still filed into their seats. So you're not a nice guy, are you? You're like a bad boy, huh? Misty asked, sounding like some blonde bimbo in a horror film ready to walk into her death. I laughed a bit more when he just glanced at her and looked away, bored. She shoved me, and I quickly caught the desk, pushing myself back upright from falling. He's obviously gay, Mitz, I said low, and watched him look to me with a lot of hatred in his eyes. Oh, I guess that was a secret. Misty scoffed. God would never make a man that hot, and then, oh my God, he's gay, she said with her expression changing mid-sentence. I smirked at her dumbfounded jaw dropping. Sigh. Poor girl. Next week we're dissecting the cats as your last assignment. Do remember to bring the correct attire and the proper equipment. Closed-toe shoes, hair will be pulled back and out of the way. You'll bring an apron or some sort of clothing protector, and please, no watches or bracelets. I have seen so many kids accidentally get the cat's stomach fluids on their $100 watches, then come crying to me about it, she said, eyeing Misty, who was fiddling with her bracelets. I mean it, Misty. You'll keep your jewelry in your bag, she stated. Misty nodded. Got it, Bev. She gave her a thumbs up. I smiled at Misty, and she eyed me. You'll have to put your long-ass Rapunzel hair in a bun, she said, taking my hair in her hand and twisting it, giving me a waggled pair of eyebrows. Turning back to Miss Bevra, I listened as she began explaining the worksheet she was handing to us. Make sure you fill in every blank. This is for points. You can work together on it. You have till the end of class. She handed us each a couple printed pages of a cat's skeletal system, organ system, and then one of the muscles with line and blank spaces beside them, labeling. She looked down at Ben. I don't know if you guys got this far in your other school. Just try to fill out as much as possible, okay? She asked, smiling at him gently. He nodded, and I watched her walk away as he checked out her ass. Maybe he's not gay. Bye, I muttered softly, his eyes looking to me, green piercing my damn soul before he turned to the paper. Misty looked down at the paper and gave me a sheepish smile. You know this, right? Because I only know where the pelvis is and then the heart. I eyed her over as she pointed to the fibula, calling it a pelvis. Moving her finger up to the pelvis, I watched her laugh. Oh, she mumbled. I smirked and began filling the papers out. The fibula, patella, scapula, metacarpals, metatarsals, the sternum, rib cage, pelvis, frontal parietal, and occipital lobe, and eventually the rest. Handing her the page, I began the next, labeling all the damn muscles in 10 minutes, before handing it to her and then doing all the organs. She handed me the page back, and I stared at Ben, who eyed my paper with a bit of desire. Guess someone's not really a brainiac. You can copy it, I said, avoiding eye contact with him and instead seeing how sloppy Misty's handwriting is. One of the papers was taken, and I bit back a grin, and Misty looked up at him. I have the organ one and skeletal if you want, she said, holding them to him. He shook his head, and I stared at the other 2 pages filled out. Damn it, he is sort of smart. I received all my papers back, jotting my name on top and turning them into Miss Bevra. Turning around, I smacked into Ryan, and he steadied me upright with his hands, grasping my wrists. I'm sorry, Lana, you okay? He asked with a sweet smile. Pig. My heart raced, and I pulled my wrists from his grasp, stepping back into Misty, who was behind me, giving him a glare. He dropped his stare and went to walk past us, but instead I walked past him. I'm not letting him get anything first. I ran into another body and scowled at him. Ben stared down at me and his papers on the floor, his jaw clenching as he looked down at Misty, and I annoyed. What is it, run into Jackass's day? I sighed and reached down, grabbing his papers and smacking them into his chest, pushing past him. Grabbing my bag, I headed out the room with Misty, the bell ringing right behind us. I just wanted to get to my next class so I can ogle my hot teacher. Misty opened the locker, switching our books and shutting it, walking with me to the classroom. I spend most focus in. That sounded weird. Yeah, I don't even know how to reword that sentence. Misty opened the locker, switching our books and shutting it, walking with me to the classroom I spend the most focus in. He's wearing a black button-up, Misty said low as we passed by Mr. Mueller. I gave him a small smile, and he returned it with a wide, perfect smile, completely unaware of how bad I wanted to sit on his face. Sitting in the back with Misty, I watched Misty take the seat beside me, looking back and knocking my book out of my hand. Bitch. I scowled. Dang it. Come on. I scowled and bent down, picking it up and then hearing someone clear their throat. Standing, I placed the book on my desk and stared behind me at Mr. Mueller. He's even hotter right now. Sorry, book dropped, I said, moving aside as he blushed and brushed past me to the back of the room. I turned my head to see him pull out the workbooks from the back. I stood and smiled at him. You need help? I asked, watching his eyes move to the workbooks. Just place one on every desk, he said as he went to the other side of the room, placing the books down. I'll fuck him right on these damn books. I swear I'd lay these books out and fuck him on top of them, I whispered to Misty, who laughed and stood, helping me put the books on the desks. As the door opened, I stared at Ben. Holy shit, is this guy in all of my classes? He seemed annoyed too, because he sighed as he noticed us both. Misty, though, she beamed. Oh, Ben, sit with us, she said, pointing to the desk in front of me. I scowled as he walked over. Sit behind me, not in front, I said, placing the last workbook down. He eyed me in aggravation, but Misty popped her head up behind me. Lana likes to fantasize about our teacher. She needs a clear view, she said low as she eyed Mr. Mueller, who was talking with another student. Ben turned his head and looked from me to Mr. Mueller, scoffing and sitting behind me. Douchebag. I took my seat in front of him and turned around, looking at him. Don't act like you don't fantasize about your teachers. You'll only be lying, I said, turning back around. Misty looked back and then eyed me with wide eyes. Why fantasize when you can actually fuck them? He asked low and right behind my ear. I turned and stared at his amused eyes before looking to Mr. Mueller thoughtfully. Why don't I fuck him? After daydreaming of the many ways Mr. Mueller and I could get away with fucking, I finished class and was on to my fourth, which surprisingly Ben wasn't in. The class went quick, and so did lunch. The last 2 classes seemed to drag on, and lucky for me, I had both with Ben. As the last bell rang, I got up and hurried out the door. I just wanted to be done with class. My brain only wants one thing. Leaving Misty, I headed for Mr. Mueller's room, knocking. He gestured for me to come in, and I headed into the room. His smile, genuine and kind, something about him told me he wouldn't ever cheat on his wife with me. I stared nervously to the door and caught eyes with Ben, who was leaning into the lockers across, his eyes on me as he waited. Staring back at Mr. Mueller, I leaned in. I was wondering if you could remind me when our next test was. I lied. He nodded. I believe it's in 2 weeks, the Thursday of that week, he said, smiling. I smiled back. Great, thanks, I said, hurrying out the door and past Ben, who saw my failed attempt at seducing my teacher. Now I just want to shove my head in a hole. Well, that was the end of chapter 1. I need to take a second. I need to take this off my head. I don't know how to take this thing off my head exactly.